Tonight we got them, Goldy, the Sulk, and JC.
Okay, wow. Guys, listeners, folks, you can't say guys anymore. This is a huge moment for this podcast.
Yes.
We are so excited, and I started writing down all this man's accomplishments for an intro, but that would be the entire interview. So I'm just going to bring out our guest, the legend, the man, the myth, a hero of ours. Please welcome Mr. Weird Al Yankovic.
Oh,
Thank you.
Guys.
Oh,
I can't say guys anymore. Sorry about that.
Yeah. Wait, can I just start with?
Yeah, I got goosebumps just thinking about it.
Thank you. We all have goosebumps. I can't even begin to think about how this happened, but we're so excited that it did. And I think it really happened because you're an incredibly nice guy.
Generous human.
Did not say fuck off when I said, would you like to be on this podcast? But one of the things that as we were ramping up to this, and I was excited telling people that we were going to get to talk to you, as I'm sure Goldy and JC were, and we were certainly talking amongst ourselves. And it's amazing how so many people had almost the exact same reaction, as though they had been given a script where, first off, they were incredibly excited, and then they said, "That's my childhood." When they heard that you're going to be here, so many people said, "That's my childhood." And of course, we all feel the same way. We're around the same age. Do fans get emotional when they meet you? Does that ever happen?
Sometimes, yeah. I mean, because I've been around for a long time, obviously, and they have a lot of nostalgic memories, and sometimes when they meet me, they become 12 years old again. So it's kind of neat. Like during the meet and greets after the show, or some people will just kind of break down because it's sort of like they're just re-experiencing their whole childhood.
I have I can feel it crawling up my back. You bring out such an emotion, and I think for Goldy, you can speak to this too, because Goldy and I are both pretty grumpy, cantankerous guys. Cut to me like 10 minutes ago trying to get my goddamn computer to work. But we're both pretty, cynical, grumpy guys. But the thought of you and what you have given to our lives is just joy and laughter and smiles. And
so nice to say. Wow.
Thank you for that. And I mean, were you always growing up as a kid? Were you like infectiously fun for people, or did you feel like an outsider and this has just sort of all happened through your career?
I never thought of myself as infectiously fun, particularly when I was a teenager in my early years. I mean, I was totally a nerd. Like when I write a song like "White and Nerdy," that comes from a lifetime of experience. But I was the high school valedictorian. I graduated when I was 16. Went to college when I was 16. I always was like not really accepted. I was always an outsider, so definitely that. But I never really thought of myself as bringing joy to the masses.
Oh well,
at that age.
You brought that in abundance, certainly throughout your career. And now so you bring up, you graduated at 16, and I was reading a little bit about this. Was that the same year that you had, and this is one of the ballsiest things I've heard when I read about people. You made a demo tape or tape of your parody songs or your first fun songs, and you presented them to Dr. Demento, who was speaking at your high school. Is that correct?
Yeah, the very first thing I gave Dr. Demento, I handed him in person a cassette tape, and because he was doing like an after-school assembly at Linwood High School, and he never played that tape, and in fact he lost. It's been lost to the ages, thankfully. Right. But yeah, I mean, I used to just record stuff in my bedroom on a little 39-cent compact cassette, and send it into the show. And sometimes he would play it, and sometimes he wouldn't.
I mean, Dr. Demento is also, we all kind of grew up listening to his awesome.
Oh, yeah. Do you remember the first thing that got on the air, like the absolute first thing? Because for me, I remember when I first had a joke on television, and I was like, "My words on TV."
Yeah. No, it was in 1976. It was a song about my family car. We had a big black 1964 Plymouth Belvedere with red upholstery and push button transmission. And I wrote a song called Belvedere Cruising. And it was a horrible song. It was juvenile and stupid. But Dr. Nemeno played it. And he told me this after the fact. He said, if you're playing the guitar, I would have thrown the tape away. But here was like a 16-year-old kid playing the accordion and thinking he was cool. I got to give this guy some exposure.
That's awesome. Now, when you were growing up and you were listening to music, were you just like kind of a pop guy? Were you a Beatles guy? Or were you like, my dad used to play me Spike Jones, in his orchestra, his wacky orchestra, and they would have like cool songs like that. Did you listen to that kind of stuff, or was your music taste eclectic, or were you kind of right down the middle?
Kind of all of the above. I mean, I listened to pop music and top 40 radio when I was in my early teens, and then I got into the more the AOR stuff, like KMET and KLOS and all the album-oriented rock. And that's KMET's the station that broadcasts the Dr. Nemeno show. So every Sunday night I was exposed to Spike Jones and Alan Sherman and Stan Freberg and Tom Lehrer and Zappa and Monty Python and everybody else.
Yes.
So I got they used to say that the rock and roll on KMET was the meat and potatoes, and the Dr. Nemeno show was the dessert at the end of the week.
Oh, that's perfect way of putting it. Now I also read something in your bio that said that you used to play, and this term that was used, I hope it's real because it really made me laugh, that you used to kind of like insert yourself into this local folk night that was kind of like a mellow evening. and I believe the term that do you remember the term you used to describe the people there?
I'm not sure. What did
you called them wannabe Dan Fogelbergs?
That's accurate. That's pretty accurate.
Yeah. I mean, what if they? So what was the reaction to you in a crowd of wannabe Dan Fogelbergs?
It was a lot of drop to jaws, and people didn't know what to think. And after a while, people started to get into it. And in fact, that was my first real positive reinforcement, because I'd never gotten laughs and gotten reaction from a crowd before, and that was I sort of mainlined that. I was like, wow, this is amazing. So that was kind of the start of it all, like going to this like place that was like doing folky, like acoustic guitar music, and coming there with my accordion and my friend who played the bongos, and we would play like just bizarre stuff. We did a medley of every song ever written in the history of the world. Easy stuff. And the crowd was both confused and delighted. So that was the start of it all.
You can't ask for a better reaction than that. Confused and delighted. Now, so at home, I don't know why I sort of picture, dad smoking a pipe, reading the paper while this accordion music is coming from the bedroom and he's shaking his head saying teenagers. What were your parents supportive? Were they kind of like he's crazy, or a mixture of both?
They're the ones that decided I should take accordion lessons, so they can't blame me for that.
Right.
I know in the biopic, my dad beats the crap out of the accordion salesman. That didn't really happen in real life.
That was so great. Yeah.
But no, they were always very, very. They thought if I took accordion lessons that I would never be lonely. I would be the life of every party. Like, who wouldn't want a one-man band at their party?
Oh, what a wonderfully old-fashioned take on popularity. That is so great. Now, you brought up the movie, which we've all seen and is hilarious.
Thank you.
You had so many, how did this come to be, and when did you realize, I need to do a parody of a music bio?
Well, it started in 2010, which is when the original Funny or Die video came out. Eric Appel, who directed the movie, he pitched me the idea of doing a bit for Funny or Die, which would be a fake trailer for this biopic. And he just seen the Biggie Smalls biopic, which he said I actually haven't seen it myself, but he said they played around with the truth quite a bit there.
Yes,
he said why don't we do a biopic about you, a person that famously has had very little drama in their life, so fairly boring life, and you're still alive, by the way.
Right.
And we'll do a biopic based on that. And I thought that's a great idea, and we collaborated on that. And it was just a Funny or Die video for 9 years. I used to play it in my live shows on stage.
Right.
Cool.
And everybody was like, "Oh, when's the movie coming out?" And we'd say, "No, it's just a video." And finally, in 2009, I woke up one morning and I said, no, this really should be a movie because, Bohemian Rhapsody had just come out.
Right.
Rocket Man was just about to come out.
Okay.
And I thought, we could do a movie and just have it just go completely off the rails. I think we could make that work.
Yeah.
Well, it totally worked. And I mean, you had so many great, hilarious people doing cameos in the movie, which always, like we've discussed Will Forte on this show before, and just the sight of him makes us just die laughing. So was that, I can imagine that it must have been kind of a fun set to be on.
It was so great. It was a very quick shoot. We shot the whole movie in 18 days.
Wow.
Oh, wow.
Because it was a fairly low budget movie and we had to shoot it that quickly. But we had the nicest people in the world, on that set. Like, Daniel Radcliffe and Will Forte and Eric Appel's. And everybody just had a great attitude about it.
Right.
And you think that people would be losing their minds, like, we got to make our day. We're losing the light.
Right.
Everybody was very cool. And it was actually a joy. We all had a wonderful, I heard from so many crew people, like, this is the best set I've ever been on.
Oh, wow.
That's awesome. Well, it totally makes sense with everyone's sort of warm and fuzzy feelings towards you. So I'm glad to hear that the set was great because the movie turned out great. And now it's like, fuck the rest of us. What are we doing shooting for like 3 months and like killing ourselves when this came out? It was great. All right, but let's go back to, would you say your first big hit was really My Bologna? Was that safe to say?
Well, if you want to call that a hit, I mean, I guess that was the first time when anybody paid attention to me, I guess.
Yes. And so was that, because I read that you recorded one of your first hits in a public bathroom. Was it that one?
That was it, yeah. And which again, that is one of the few things on the movie that's actually true. My first single was in fact recorded in a public restroom.
Yeah,
oh, wow.
God.
Why not anywhere else?
Why?
Acoustics.
Literally anywhere else.
Was it
24-track restroom though?
Okay.
Was it for the reverb?
The bathroom wall of sound.
Yeah. Was it because of the reverb of the bathroom? Like,
That's exactly right, because they had those nice warm tiled walls and had a very nice sound.
Did you say the bathroom wall of sound?
Yes.
No, I think that was Phil Sphincter, right? The bathroom wall of sound. Yeah. Now I watched something that made me laugh endlessly for about 6 reasons, which was, and I'm wondering if this was your first appearance on television. It was your performance of Another One Rides the Bus on the show with Tom Snyder.
Yes.
So
tomorrow Coast to Coast. Yeah.
So Tom Snyder, he's always fascinated me because he has such an older generation stiffness, but he's desperately trying to be like hip, kind of, and he could barely get through your intro. He kind of mauled like what the song was, even though he had already said it. It was very confusing, and it was typical Tom Snyder. And then it's you and your buddy playing percussion, whose name escapes me, but if you want to shout it out,
John Bermuda Schwartz. He's still with me to this day.
Oh,
that's right.
cool.
That's awesome. So it's the two of you, and you're just absolutely laying it all out there with Another One Rides the Bus. What could you feel what the audience's reaction was that night?
Again, kind of confused and delighted, but it was looking back on it, it was pretty punk. It was a very punk performance, and Tom Snyder in a suit is like doing these dad jokes, trying to introduce me and forgetting the name of the song, and it's just like. Because I was one of 3 novelty artists on that show. Like none of us were famous at the time,
right?
I was just like some wacky act that he just happened to have on, just because that was like the theme of the night.
Yeah.
But it wound up being my very first ever national TV appearance.
Well,
all my memories of Tom Snyder, of watching him, he was still fascinated that it was going out in color. And he would comment on that a lot. Like he would be like, the color teeny coming to your living room. It's like,
right.
That's not fascinating anymore.
It's like those hotels, like, we have color TV.
Yes.
All the letters are different color.
Right. He was a living motel sign. That's so true. Now, something that really interests me, because working at Family Guy, we often will write something and we'll want to use a song in a certain scene or a song in a certain way, but half of the time we can't clear it. They won't allow it. So I'm fascinated. How did that process begin for you, that people were like, okay, sure, you can use my song and do this? How did that work for you?
Well, it started with another one, Rides the Bus, which I just did on the Demento show. And this is before I had a record deal or anything. And I just did it. And we heard from Queen's lawyer saying, you didn't get permission for this. And I was like, do I need to? Is that how it works? It was a quick education. Thankfully, they were very cool about it. But I learned pretty quickly that you kind of, and it is sort of a gray area, as you know. But yeah, we always, make sure that now that we get permission of the original songwriters.
Yeah, and I would imagine now, and by now I mean anytime after 1983, I'm sure people were thrilled to have you kind of parody their song. But was there ever a song that you really wanted to do and the people were like, no?
Yeah, it's pretty rare. Famously, Prince never let me do anything. I had about a half a dozen ideas that I pitched him on over the years.
Can you hit us with the title?
Oh gosh, originally in the movie UHF, instead of a Dire Straits parody, it was going to be a parody of "Let's Go Crazy," again about the Beverly Hillbillies.
Yeah.
There was a parody of 1999 called 1999, but it was like an infomercial thing for just 1999.
That's great.
And several ideas like that, and they were all various degrees of clever, but I mean none of them got approved.
Oh, yeah.
Do you pitch them directly or do you pitch their people who pitch them? Because in my experience, that makes a big difference.
Yeah, I didn't have Prince's home phone number, so I couldn't do that. But so it's like my peeps talking to his peeps. So maybe it lost something in translation. I don't know.
Yeah, that's possible. Now, obviously, Eat It and Fat were two just titanic home runs for you. And did you ever get a chance to meet Michael Jackson in person?
I did. I think twice. I went to one of his concerts in LA, and I got to go backstage and present him with a gold album for my album Even Worse, which had the Fat parody on it.
Yeah.
And he was gracious. He was like, "Oh, I'll throw this on the pile. Thank you."
That's like, and that clearance process was smooth. They were okay with that. They said,
"Yeah,
Eat It and Fat."
And that kind of was a big turning point, because actually prior to Eat It, it was a little difficult for my manager to get his phone calls returned. And when we approached Michael Jackson, we didn't think that he'd get back to us, even because he was like the most popular being in the universe.
Yes.
But he did, and there's now a contract with my signature next to Michael Jackson's signature, saying that we are the co-writers of Eat It.
Oh, that's so great.
And now, whenever, ever since 1984, if anybody was giving us a hard time with permission, we could say, well, Michael Jackson.
Oh, that's so great.